In this presentation, I'll be joined by my colleague, Maya Newhagen. Maya is a senior manager for optimization and licensing assessment program at AWS. So first thing, what you can expect from this session. At AWS, we are passionate to build new products and share our technical know-how with all of you to save cost of running any workloads on AWS. But this particular session is about Microsoft workloads. So if you are thinking of running Windows Server, SQL Server, .NET applications, SharePoint, Dynamics, any of those workloads, how you can save cost with AWS, that's what we will discuss. And licensing is a big part of any Microsoft workloads. So how you can optimize your licensing needs as well as right-size your infrastructure to save cost, that will be the focus of this presentation. And we are going to talk about the products and programs that help you do exactly that. Talking about products and programs, our products and programs are created based on the feedback that we have received from our customers. Over past 14 years, AWS has been running Windows workloads, and the customers who have trusted us for running their workloads, mission-critical workloads on AWS, we want to thank them. Their partnership, and all of you who are sitting here, you are those customers who have influenced our roadmaps and given us inputs. So thank you. Thank you for your partnership, and thank you for the trust that you have placed on AWS, because Windows workloads have been running on AWS more than any other providers that you can find. Now, as you start thinking about your business case for migrating Windows workloads or Microsoft workloads to AWS, you quickly realize that the economic benefits of migrating any workloads to cloud extends far beyond cost savings. Even though this session is going to be about cost savings, let's remember that increasing the productivity of your staff is important. Having your applications highly available and performant, that is important for your business performance as well. And equally important is the business agility, where you want to launch new products and innovations quickly and reliably. And we have numerous customers who have got these benefits of migrating to cloud. So today, when we dive deep into cost savings, you can use many tools. You can use many best practices and guidance to save cost. But if I have to classify them in like 3 levers, these are the 3 that I talk about. One is product innovation. It is very important for us to pick right products for our workloads. So if you are migrating a workload, it is useful for you to identify what kind of product will fit your workload. And AWS is innovating to provide you the depth and breadth of those products so you can save cost and run those workloads efficiently. The second lever is infrastructure and licensing cost optimization. Sometimes because of your business priorities, you may prioritize to just migrate, lift and shift all your workloads to AWS. But as you migrate to AWS or whatever you have migrated to AWS, always think about right-sizing your infrastructures and identifying ways to reduce the licensing costs that you are paying, because there are always opportunities for you to save costs. So that is the second lever of cost savings. The third is the migration and modernization programs that AWS has developed for all of you. Those programs not only provide you the incentives, but also provide you technical guidance based on all the migrations and transformations that AWS has done for customers over past 14 years. So these are the 3 important levers that we are going to talk about in today's session. So for product innovation, when you think of migrating your Microsoft workloads to AWS, a big part of the product that you are going to use is our compute, storage, and databases. Now, talking about compute, AWS provides the broadest and deepest compute platform choices. Why it is important for cost savings? It is important because each one of these instance types which are available on AWS, and there are more than 500 of those are developed to meet the needs of your workloads. So it is important for you to identify which of these instances will fit your workload. Do you need, your workload is like compute intensive, memory intensive, you need more EBS throughput. All of those things, once you identify, you will be able to make the best use of the compute offerings that we have. Now, let's just take example of Nitro systems. That is where AWS has innovated and invested a lot over past few years. Now, Nitro systems has changed the game when it comes to cost savings and agility. So look at how the compute was before Nitro systems. This is the pre-Nitro systems compute offering, which is pretty common even today on-premises or any other providers, where you would have your compute infrastructure which is shared by the actual applications that you run in those VMs or instances, as well as your hypervisors, and there will be your management, security, and monitoring. So generally, we have seen around 70% of the infrastructure is shared between your instances and your hypervisor. Remaining 30% is the overhead of management, security, and monitoring. Those are important things, but it goes from the capacity that you are using in cloud or on premises. We had already offloaded some of those networking and storage into a separate infrastructure, but now with Nitro, look at what is happening. Close to 100% of your infrastructure capacity is available for your instances. You still have very lightweight hypervisor, which is hardened for past many years, but ultimately you get all your networking, storage, management, and security monitoring. All those processes are now using a dedicated chip, Nitro chip, which is in the motherboard, and you will get close to 100% of the capacity. And it is very important because when you migrate those workloads to AWS, you will now need less number of instances. You will need less licenses, less number of licenses. So your cost goes down both in infrastructure as well as licenses. So how does this translate when you actually test it out? So Principal Technologies did this study for SQL Server workloads. SQL Server is memory intensive workload. So they picked our memory optimized R5B instances and used our GP3, general purpose 3 EBS volume. And they compared the performance of running the SQL Server workload on EC2 and GP3 with a comparable configuration provided by another provider. Now, they not only just published these results, what they have done is they have published the steps that you can take to reproduce these results and validate. So what they found was that for SQL Server workloads on EBS, GP3, and R5B, you get 2.7 times faster performance on EC2. How it translates to the cost savings? For getting the same level of performance between two configurations, you will be spending 68% less on this configuration on AWS. So this is the power of the innovation which has been done on compute, storage, and ultimately providing those to you where you can run your Microsoft workloads. These are all using the list price. So another important point for you to look at is, as you make decisions on what products to use and where to migrate your workloads, always look at price performance. Just list prices sometimes can be misleading or blatantly wrong decision, because each compute, each storage is not comparable, even if it says it has the same number of vCPUs or same amount of throughput. So always look at price performance. Now, we took this example of EBS and EC2. Now let's look at FSX. which is our fully managed service for storage. Now, FSx has many flavors. I want to focus on FSx for Windows and FSx for NetApp ONTAP that we launched last year. Now, these two options are used by many customers, especially if you are looking for high availability on SQL Server. So for high availability, you want to make sure that there is no single point of failure. You want your SQL Server and the applications depending on SQL Server highly available. So most of the customers were using SQL Server Enterprise with always-on availability group. SQL Server Enterprise is powerful, but it is expensive. So what customers were asking is, can we get high availability of SQL Server with SQL Server Standard? And now another option of high availability is your failover cluster instances. So with FSx, what customers are doing now is they are using FSx, which has multi-AZ deployment, is continuously available, so you don't have single point of failure, and you can run SQL Server Standard with failover cluster instances, and that saves cost. So let's take an example. Here is how Change Healthcare used FSx for Windows for their SQL Server high availability and saved $3.1 million for their cost. And still, their requirement was high availability for their applications, as well as they wanted more than 40,000 IOPS. So they wanted high performance and high availability. So they migrated their workloads to EC2, used FSx for Windows, and set up their failover cluster with SQL Server Standard, and they ultimately achieved more than 40,000 IOPS and got $3.1 million in cost savings. So as you can see from this example of Change Healthcare, that licensing plays a huge role in your cost. If Change Healthcare could make a right licensing decision and save this cost, I'm sure all of you can. So what are the licensing options that AWS provides? For Microsoft workloads particularly, you have two options. One is you can get AWS provided licenses and with pay-as-you-go model, or you can bring your own licenses. There are licensing rules that Microsoft sets. If you have BYOL, bring your own licenses, eligible licenses, you can bring those to AWS. So that BYOL falls into two categories. One is if you have license mobility rights to use those licenses in AWS, you can run those in shared tenancy. So examples are like SQL Server, SharePoint, Microsoft Dynamics. If you have those licenses and software assurance, you can bring those to AWS, your own existing licensing investments, and run those workloads on AWS. If you don't have license mobility rights, which would be like Windows Server, then you will have to run those on dedicated host. If you have BYOL eligible Windows Server, which were purchased before October 1st, 2019, you can continue bringing those to AWS on dedicated hosts. Now, one thing that a lot of customers asked us is that SQL Server licenses are far more expensive than Windows Server. So we might run out of Windows Server licenses based on the licensing rules, but how can you future-proof our investments in SQL Server licenses that we have? We still want to BYOL those. So what we have done is, in dedicated hosts, now you have an option to run AWS-provided licenses for Windows Server and use SQL Server BYOL on top of that. So you're still getting cost savings even when you don't have your Windows Server licenses that you can BYOL. So these are your licensing options on AWS. Now, how does license included instances fit in cost savings? Because it is important to understand your workload characteristics. If you have workloads which are not continuously running for more than 50% of the time, then your license included on-demand configurations might be better for you, where you get per second billing for Windows and SQL Server on AWS, And you don't have to worry about your long-term licensing commitment with the vendor. You pay as you go. There are no true-ups, no software compliance or audit issues, and no software upgrade required. So just think of an example. Microsoft announced SQL Server 2022 just a few days back. Now, if you want to run SQL Server 2022, you can just go and have license included SQL Server 2022 ready, available, and supported on AWS. So it is easily available whether you want to run your Windows servers or SQL Server. And SQL Server options are available both on Windows Server as an operating system or Linux. So AWS supports both of those, and you have Amazon Machine Images pre-built and fully managed by AWS for each one of those options. Now, next part is BYOL, bring your own licenses. So the first part we talked about there is if you have license mobility and you want to bring those to your shared tenancy, you may have many applications like SQL Server, Dynamics, SharePoint. You can bring those to AWS, and you can use AWS's AMI for Windows Server. Or if you have SQL Server, you can run it on Windows Server or SQL Server or Linux. So those are your options. Now, this one is where I have seen in last 2 to 3 years, a lot of customers getting huge cost savings when they bring their own licenses to dedicated host. And with dedicated host, customers are able to maximize the virtualization benefits. So they can have unlimited virtualization, run as many VMs as they want. They will license the entire dedicated host. So you can do that. We have simplified the dedicated host management with integration with License Manager. So you can automatically allocate dedicated host. You can place instances. You can automatically release. There is auto recovery supported. So a lot of customers are now considering for all their existing licenses, use dedicated host. And also, you can minimize your SQL Server licenses on dedicated host. If you're using SQL Server Enterprise, you can maximize your virtualization benefits and run as many SQL Server instances as you like on your dedicated host. So these are important product options that you can choose for. Now, this is another one that I want to highlight that you can consider using optimized CPU. While we have a good breadth and depth of EC2 configurations, where you will find one of those instances which will have right amount of CPU and memory. But sometimes you might have a workload where you need more memory and less CPU. Let's say SQL Server is a good example of that. So if here is an example where a customer who wants to use 64 gig memory, but they want only 4 vCPUs. Now, they will pick R5 2x large, which comes with 8 vCPU. With optimized CPU, now they can opt. So if you are using this configuration, you can opt to use only 4 vCPUs and consume licenses only for those 4 vCPUs. So you directly get 40% savings for this. And this is one option that I highly recommend for customers who are not finding the exact match of memory and CPU that they are looking for. Now, on license included side, we talked about the examples of Windows Server, SQL Server, SharePoint, all of those. Over past couple of years, we had many customers like you who came to us and asked for new offering of Microsoft Office and Visual Studio on EC2. These customers had a very specific use case where either they were looking for on-demand use of this software, where when their staff levels increase in peak season, like right now, Thanksgiving, or they want to reduce the staff, they don't want to buy all the licenses for long term from a vendor. They would rather have an on-demand pay-as-you-go model for Visual Studio and Microsoft Office. The second use case was they did not want to deal with the the obsolete hardware and upgrading those and providing right hardware to people who are working in hybrid environments. Many people are remote. So how they can provision their, if they are developers, how their Visual Studio with right hardware will be provisioned. They wanted that flexibility. The third part was they were actually looking for running EC2 applications on EC2, which had some dependency on Microsoft Office. So they needed Microsoft Office licenses in EC2 to run those applications. So to meet this criteria, today morning, we announced Microsoft Office on EC2, and earlier this month, we have announced Visual Studio on EC2. So how it works? These are per user licenses. The first time on EC2, we are making per user licensing model available for these two products. So you can get per user, per month usage of these licenses. On EC2, you can find those fully managed AMIs, Amazon Machine Images, which are pre-built with Office and Visual Studio, or you can go to Marketplace and get those from Marketplace. Then, as a license administrator, you have an option to just go and authorize users who will have access to this software. So license manager is available to you at no additional cost. So your license administrators or IT administrators can use that product and authorize users. And you don't have to worry about hardware upgrade and other things. So 3 easy steps: discover those AMIs which are already launched. You can start using today. You go and use our directory services. So you use managed Active Directory, and that will help you in identifying those users who needs permissions. And finally, you go to License Manager and go and authorize those users who are going to use these products. Once that authorization is done, your end users can simply go to the EC2 instance and remotely log in and connect to that and start using Visual Studio or Office for their use cases. And you can deprovision those users, and you will not be paying from next month onwards. So that's the licensing model and new licensing option that we have launched today. Now comes the cost optimization. So we talked about few products who help you save cost, both in license included world and BY world. Now let's talk about the end-to-end cost optimization journey, because your cost optimization journey can start much before you actually migrate workloads to AWS. And it can continue even after you have run that workload for a few years. So we are going to talk about all 3 steps of migrate, operate, optimize, and modernize, how you can save cost in each one of those, and what tools AWS has made available for you. So first one, on migration planning. So important part as part of migration planning is to identify what are the cost savings opportunities that you have. So Maya is going to talk about a program which simplifies. I'm going to tell you what products really help you. So first thing you want to look for is if you have over-provisioned any of your workloads for peak usage. Before cloud, I come from that world. I have first-hand experience of provisioning 10x for the last peak just to be prepared. Many customers still do that. So if you have those over-provisioned workloads, identify those with AWS products like Migration Evaluator or many other partner products that help you do that. If you have any outdated hardware, just get to the best and latest generation hardware, which will have better price performance for you. Second is you identify your Microsoft licensing savings opportunities. Again, we have products that help you do this at no additional cost to you, where we provide those products to you. You identify those cost optimization opportunities, and then it will also give you recommendations on what is the right instance on which you can run this workload, and also give you recommendations on what should be the licensing model based on the inputs that you provide. So now comes the migration. So during actual migration, lot of customers were in this long migration journey, like the migrations engagements continue for more than 2 years. Some of you might be in that boat. So how can you use the experience that AWS has gathered in all these years and use right products to accelerate those migrations so you can start getting the cloud benefits early and you can reduce the cost of migration itself? So we have launched AWS Migration Hub Orchestrator, which uses the prescriptive guidance from AWS and our partners who provide us the prescribed steps that you need to follow for migrating your SQL Server workloads, your SAP workloads, your Windows applications. And then using this tool, you can automate many of those manual tasks that you perform while migrating yourself. So there are pre-migration checks, automated, post-migration testing. You can plug in your testing framework, and you track the end-to-end migration journey from this product. So this is available as well. And finally, when it comes to operating those workloads on AWS, you want to look for opportunities of, even after you migrate with right products from AWS, how you can use auto-scaling so you don't need to over-provision, how you can use our latest generation hardware, and also use right pricing plan. Because based on your workloads, you can decide whether you will benefit from savings plans, reserved instances, spot, or on-demand instances. So these are all the options which you should continuously look for. And we have tools like Cost Explorer, AWS Compute Optimizer, which help you do exactly that. It will provide you right recommendations for workloads which are already running on EC2. What is the final thing that you can do for ultimately save cost? And that is to modernize your workloads. Because modernization is going to help you get to the modern architectures, open source, cloud native services which don't rely on those punitive and restrictive licenses. So it will improve your pace of innovation and at the same time save cost for you. So there are 3 reasons we are seeing a lot of customers, and many of you are here who would be in this journey of transforming your legacy applications and modernizing them to save cost, improve agility, and improve your price performance. So there are multiple pathways that you can take for modernization. Many customers pick where they first want to rehost their existing applications to EC2 or RDS, and then take the second step of modernizing. Few customers just go and directly modernize at the time of migration itself. The second option is replatforming. You might have workloads which are running on Windows, and now you decide to move those to Linux, and you can do that. Or you refactor or rewrite your applications to use the best capabilities that AWS provide with our cloud native services. So to help with all of these processes, last week we have launched AWS Modernization Calculator for Microsoft workloads. This is a self-service tool where you go and without having deep knowledge of each one of those modernized architecture or those services, you can quickly go and pick the right architecture pattern and actually modernize, get an estimate of what a modernization will look like. Second is we have launched AWS Toolkit for .NET refactoring. A lot of our customers who were running .NET workloads, they wanted to refactor those and use our tools for containerizing or moving to serverless. And they had these different tools. How do you tie all of those things together and make those available to those .NET developers? So AWS has launched this new plugin. It is a plugin to the Visual Studio IDE, which you can use, and that will give you access to all the tools which are used in your modernization journey. You can do your migration assessment, and we have tools for that. You can do porting of your applications. You can containerize your applications, or even break monolith and get assistive guidance to create microservices. So there are many tools. It is important that based on your workload needs, you engage AWS specialist who can work with you, and pick right tools and right methods to save cost, because there are a lot of cost savings opportunities. And now I'll request Maya to talk about some of the programs which make this whole journey easier for you. Maya?
Thank you, Rajesh. Okay.
No.
So as Rajesh mentioned, cost optimization starts well before the migration actually happens, and it continues throughout the migration and modernization journey on AWS. I'll now cover some of the programs available to you today. They'll help you get started with your journey and figure out cost savings for your Microsoft workloads early and keep the trend going. So when considering migration, customers often have a lot of questions for us, and maybe you have some of these questions yourself, or maybe somebody from your team has had one of these questions. Questions like, what do I have in my environment? Does AWS support my on-premises workloads? How does enterprise licensing work on AWS? Can I bring my own licenses? How can I lower my total cost of ownership, or TCO? What tools and funding are available to help? Show of hands. Have any of you asked a question like that? Any of those questions? Thank you. Yes, yes. So what's our answer? How does AWS help? One of the ways is by helping customers run optimization and licensing assessments. We call that an OLA, so I'll say OLA over and over again. An OLA enables businesses to assess and optimize current on-premises and cloud environments based on actual resources and utilization and third-party licensing. This allows you to build a migration and licensing strategy to unlock those savings that we keep talking about as you transition to AWS. By understanding the customer's hardware, application performance, existing contracts, we provide a solution that will help right-size your resources, provide a clear AWS roadmap, and eliminate costs by using your existing entitlements. And you get to pay for only what you use. OLA is a no-cost offering, so take advantage, for new and existing customers. An OLA will provide you with a report that will model your deployment options using your existing licensing entitlements, and the results will help you explore available cost savings across the flexible licensing options that Rajesh shared. The OLA is comprised of 3 steps. Oh, oops. Sorry.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Okay. The OLA is comprised of 3 steps: data collection. We use tools such as AWS Migration Evaluator and partner tools as well to help collect all that information. We provide analysis for you, and then we provide you a plan, like I mentioned. What's your roadmap on AWS look like? What resources, what instances work best for your existing workloads? So I have a customer story to share. Veolia, New Zealand and Australia is part of a global Veolia group. They are committed to ecological transformation through sustainable water, waste, and energy initiatives. They have about 180,000 employees worldwide who focus on developing access to natural resources. The group's been pursuing digital transformation for several years, and their transformation is underpinned by 3 pillars: move to the cloud, data for business, and security anytime, anywhere, and from any device. To build a business case for the cloud, they worked with a local partner called CMD Solutions, and CMD Solutions performed an optimization and licensing assessment. Thanks, Rajesh. They were able to uncover gaps, understand dependencies and constraints, and CMD assisted with building the business case and executing on details. So Veolia's technology stack was running Windows OS, SQL database, .NET applications, Active Directory, and through migration, as well as retiring some databases and consolidating the remaining SQL databases, they were able to save, how much? A lot, 67%. And the optimization and licensing assessment helped them discover where these savings were. So we've seen some impressive customer savings based on the execution of an optimization and licensing assessment. On average, customers have been able to reduce the SQL cores they need to license by 45% when moving to AWS. And for Windows Server, this percentage is even higher. Customers on average can reduce their Windows Server licensing by 77%. So an optimization and licensing assessment is something that you definitely want to do. Here's some more proof. So here's some examples. Okay, good, they showed up. Right-sizing, excuse me. One of our financial services customers had 856 Windows servers, Windows VMs. Right-sizing provided through OLA saved them 52%, which is about $3 million. And they were able to reduce the number of SQL cores needed by 35%. A global engineering customer had over 3,000 Windows VMs. We helped save them 58%, or over $1 million, through right-sizing, and we were able to optimize their SQL cores by 31%. And I'll highlight just one more. A travel services customer had 40 Windows VMs, saved 68% through right-sizing, and the key highlight for this one is their SQL optimization. They were able to go from 768 cores to 204 cores. That is a 73% savings. So I mentioned data collection, analysis, and planning that an OLA provides. If you're sitting here thinking, what can you do to get started? We have a quick way to do that. So I'd like to introduce Migration Evaluator Quick Insights. So the process to kick off your business case starts on the Migration Evaluator product page. Simply click the Start Building Your Business Case button, and you'll be prompted to enter some details. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a little water. So you'll determine whether you need to have a tool for data collection or if you're going to provide a flat file that we will analyze. After you submit, within 4 hours, you'll be connected with a solutions architect who will help kick off your business case with you. So once you click submit, yes, and then in 48 hours, you'll be able to go to the Migration Evaluator dashboard here, the console rather, and you'll find your engagements listed. So we'll click on an example engagement. And what it'll provide to you is a couple of outputs. Today we'll focus on the summary output. It's just a one-slide PDF, which showcases a lot of great information. So this will populate after you've either provided your flat file or deployed your on-premises agentless collector. So as you can see here, the Quick Insights will provide you your estimated annual cost, as well as your potential savings amount. And this is a very quick snapshot, right? This was 48 hours of running an agentless collector. So the savings projected for this customer is 20%. You'll also see a breakdown of what the AWS environment will run in terms of EC2 being 46% of your cost, attached EBS 32%, and licenses being 22%. So as a little further down the report, what you'll see is the scope of the assessment. Opposite direction, thanks. So you'll see number of servers, you'll see the operating systems, licensing, attached storage, and utilization. So this is a really great way to kind of get stakeholders in the same mindset of potential savings for migrating your Windows workloads. And that is Migration Evaluator Quick Insights. Now, to kick off a full business case creation, You can work with the migration evaluator team, and they will pull in the optimization and licensing assessment team, and we'll be able to find those savings for you. Okay. Thanks, Rajesh. All right, so let's take a look at the customer journey and savings opportunities along the way. So Rajesh mentioned modernization, and that takes you to the far right hand of the screen. Innovation velocity is really fast, cost of compute is really low, but there's a lot of things that need to happen on the way there. Now, if we're in the on-premises land, we've run an OLA, and we're figuring out how to right size, and we're starting that journey. But what does AWS have that can help you execute along that path? We have the Migration Acceleration Program. Anyone familiar with MAP? Oh, lots of people. Great. So do you want to come present this part? Just kidding. So the Migration Acceleration Program is a proven program. It's been around for lots of years. And basically, they've taken all the learnings from helping thousands of customers migrate to AWS and packaged them up in tools, partner tools, training, specific content for your training needs, professional services support, as well as their proven methodology. So AWS also invests in MAP migrations. So other than just investments, the technical guidance is super valuable. Now, how do OLA and MAP coincide? You can use an OLA as part of your MAP assessment, and your costs will be covered. So not only do you get AWS investment, but you also get the technical support. You have the opportunity to access this vast experience that the thousands and thousands of migrations that we've done provides by engaging the program. So does everyone remember where they were when COVID started? I wasn't traveling. Were you traveling? Lots of people stopped traveling. We had a customer, when COVID-19 hit, Finnair is the customer. They were nearing the end of their existing contract with their on-premises provider. They had a large estate, 400 servers, 70 applications with a mix of legacy, Windows, 2008, 2003, 2000, SAP, VMware, Oracle, you name it. All of these workloads drove their daily operations. And even their ticketing booths had not been touched in 20 years. So Finnair selected an APN partner, NordCloud, to help with their big and complex migration project. And they engaged MAP. They engaged the optimization and licensing assessment. MAP supported the execution. And because of COVID lockdown, there was an opportunity to migrate in mere months. So that's tons of transformation in mere months. That's amazing. So drastic reduction in travel, made their mission critical applications not operating at normal capacity. So being able to save costs through the OLA and through migration to the cloud really helped them out when travel was just ground to a halt. So that was a great story. And now they're able to grow and innovate really quickly. So we do have another unique offering. We have the Windows Migration Accelerator. So this offering helps reduce costs when you accelerate the migration of your Windows servers specifically. The basis of this offering gives you up to $250 in service credits for every migrated Windows server. Credits will help offset your costs. You're going to have to run 2 environments simultaneously when you're migrating, so we'll offset those costs. And the offer encourages you to lift and shift with a more predictable schedule and cost so that you can focus on more complex workloads. You can check out the webpage here to learn more about the offer. So, what we're hoping you learned today. Right size with OLA. This is for those considering migration or even existing customers. So if you've never done an optimization and licensing assessment, we can still work with you. Always consider price performance. Pick the most performant, latest generation compute and storage options for lower costs. Don't just lift and shift. Wherever there are opportunities, consider modernization. Okay? And use the AWS programs available to you to help reduce costs of migration, access technical assistance, and reduce your risk. Where can you learn more? We invite you to this page. It's our Windows landing page on our AWS site. So if you want to grab that. And hopefully you learned something here today. If you liked what you learned and interested to hear sessions with related topics, here are some of our colleagues' talks. And that's all we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. Rajesh and I will be here to answer any questions and hang out for a bit after we close out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.